What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our top 5 wide receivers most likely to bust for the 2021 fantasy football season. Basically, these are all big name guys that are ranked inside the top 25 that have serious bust potential and could adversely affect your roster. So make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree? Who else belongs on this list? And lastly, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. While you're there, get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Everything you could want at a great price. All the details in the description. But with that being said, let's get into it. And here, as you can see, we have got our ADP list pulled up across several different platforms for the wide receivers. Again, note this is PPR based, so just keep that in mind. But with that being said, coming in at number 1, we have got Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, as I'll say for every single one of these wide receivers, this is nothing against Mike Evans. We think he's extremely talented, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. In fact, we were preaching his upside last season as the Tampa Bay wide receiver to own, ends up being a top 10 guy. So we were right on that. But this is a testament to how things can change just in the blink of an eye. And in fact, I feel like Mike Evans is the poster child of several negative categories for wide receivers. Most likely to underwhelm, most likely to regress, one of the most overvalued wide receivers. And then all of this obviously feeds into potential busts. But let's keep it simple. The biggest and most simple reason for this bust is just because right now his ranking is way too high across a lot of platforms. Recency bias saw him have a lot of success last season, namely due to touchdowns, which are very variable. And now people are trying to draft him in the 3rd round, towards the end of the 3rd round. But in reality, there are too many mouths to feed in Tampa Bay. That's what all of this boils down to. And these rankings don't necessarily, reflect that, because not only does Mike Evans have to contend with Chris Godwin, who, when healthy last season, took away a lot of opportunities from Mike Evans, made him touchdown dependent, which, yes, he had success in, but because you can't guarantee touchdown success year to year, you can't rely on that in 2021. And Mike Evans did benefit from the fact that Chris Godwin was injured for a stint, here and there. So he was the just number 1 guy for Tom Brady. But now you also throw in Antonio Brown, who's going to be playing for the Bucs for the entirety of the season. And all of a sudden, Mike Evans is a guy that on a week-to-week basis, you can't guarantee consistency. I mean, hell, you couldn't guarantee that for him last season when it was only him and Chris Godwin, and even when Chris Godwin was hurt. So you take into account the touchdowns. You take into account all the other competition. Also, the fact that the Bucs probably want to protect Tom Brady and his arm for the postseason, and Mike Evans screams as a guy that you should be avoiding. More than likely, he is a wide receiver 2, mid to low end wide receiver 2, that no chance in hell duplicates his success from last season. So for that reason, we will be passing on him. But moving on to our number 2 wide receiver, we are staying in Tampa Bay, folks. Maybe this is beating a dead horse, but we have got Chris Godwin of the Bucs here at number 17. Everything that we said for Mike Evans holds pretty much the exact same for Chris Godwin. Now, Godwin will benefit likely because obviously projecting a full season from him, he's going to better his stats. And in fact, PPR based, we actually think Chris Godwin should be ranked higher than Mike Evans. He was getting more volume, more targets. Mike Evans isn't a guy that gets peppered with targets. He's a guy that's a big body, physical. He's touchdown upside. Chris Godwin, though, he's the guy that's probably going to end up with more receptions than Mike Evans. So he should, in all honesty, be ranked higher on this list. But even with that being the case, the same situation applies. He's being drafted right after, even a little bit before Mike Evans, depending on who you're drafting with and the format you're drafting in, towards the end of the 3rd round. But since he's in the exact same category, the exact same situation, the exact same team, playing with the exact same teammates and quarterback, he should be drafted 2-3 rounds later. Look at where Antonio Brown is being drafted. That's probably an overcorrection on the other end because he's a guy that's extremely undervalued right now and has huge upside. Where for Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, it's the exact opposite. I like Chris Godwin. He had a monster season 2 years ago with Jameis Winston, but Tom Brady isn't going to be airing it out like Jameis Winston. And for that reason, and because this, wide receiver room has gotten even more crowded with another talented wide receiver in Antonio Brown, we just can't pull the trigger on Chris Godwin. If you're drafting him in the 3rd round, absolutely expect bust. You will not get the return on your investment. So keep that in mind, not only for Chris Godwin, but again, for pretty much Mike Evans as well. But moving on outside of Tampa Bay, we go to the number 19th overall ranked wide receiver here in Adam Thielen for the Minnesota Vikings, the number 3 guy on our list. And yes, Adam Thielen, all things considered last season, managed to salvage the year. But when you look at it, a lot of that was because of his touchdown success. And if you take that away, his season isn't all that impressive. And he tumbles big time down wide receiver rankings. Yet, he's still being drafted, per this ADP list as a top 20 guy. Now, yes, he's still a viable option, but Justin Jefferson is the number 1 wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. And if you take away that touchdown upside for Adam Thielen and you just kind of leave him with the receptions, with the yardage that he had in 2020, a wide receiver 19 finish is way, way, way too optimistic. People aren't realizing that. Again, here, the crux of the problem is that touchdowns are so variable. Adam Thielen, another year older, and it's not like we haven't seen him have success before. He's a trusted option for Kirk Cousins, but Justin Jefferson will be the priority on this team. And at the end of the day, this is still a run-first team. It goes through Dalvin Cook. That's how the Minnesota Vikings want to operate this thing right now. Where you're seeing Adam Thielen go, that's way too optimistic of projections in terms of him being able to duplicate a category that on a year-to-year basis is impossible to predict. So for that reason, we have to fade Adam Thielen and have to label him with some bust potential. Next on up, we have got Deontay Johnson, just 1 spot lower at the number 20 slot. And Deontay Johnson is honestly a very polarizing figure at the wide receiver position. Some people really love him, and some people, aren't as high on him. For what it's worth, we actually think he's a very talented wide receiver, probably ends up being the wide receiver 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the guy that you want to own. And, he's going to have some big weeks. He could be a wide receiver 1. But, the key word here is could be. Because even though there's huge upside, there's also a very low floor, which is, naturally kind of the definition of boom or bust. And that's what we're talking about here because Deontay Johnson also plays with Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster. But more importantly, you've got Big Ben Roethlisberger throwing him the football. Now, if this was Roethlisberger of 5, 6, 7 years ago, no problem. Deontay Johnson probably not on this list. But Roethlisberger, his arm, we saw it last season. It's not what it once was. The guy, he's probably a year away, max 2 years from retirement. And Deontay Johnson, all these wide receivers will probably be hurt from that at some point in time during this season. Again, there's way too many mouths to feed here in Pittsburgh. And again, don't get me wrong, I really like Deontay Johnson. I love the upside. I'll take a chance on him at some point in time, but you just need to understand what you're taking a chance on. You're taking a chance on a boom or bust guy. As talented as he might be, Deontay Johnson does have that bust potential. A couple years back, Tyreek Hill was in that category. Obviously, now considering he's playing with Patrick Mahomes and all those things considered, kind of taking away the consistency issues last season, he has no business being on this list. But, this is kind of early Tyreek Hill days for Deontay Johnson. That's probably a little bit optimistic. That's probably a little bit flattering. But the idea being here is that there's a wide range of outcomes for Deontay Johnson. And for that reason, he should be on your bust radar. And now moving on to our fifth wide receiver here, our final name, we have got Kenny Golladay of the New York Giants. The former Detroit line wide receiver got paid big time this off season, ends up with the New York Giants. Now, in terms of landing spots, probably not ideal, but the guy's being drafted as a top 25 wide receiver. So, again, he's being regarded as a wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 2, probably worst case, mid-level wide receiver 2. But a couple issues arise here. First and foremost, Daniel Jones is not Matthew Stafford. Nowhere near close to that. The reason why the Giants spent all this money to surround Daniel Jones with these weapons is because, up until now, he hasn't proven that he's good enough on his own to elevate other wide receivers. He needs some of that extra help. So this is a downgrade at the quarterback position for Kenny Golladay, no questions about it. On top of that, Kenny Golladay has never been a wide receiver that gets a lot of volume. He is, made his success similar to a Mike Evans with a lot of touchdowns, with a lot of big plays, things like that. But he's not going to all of a sudden get 100 receptions on the season. He's got a lot of competition there as well. You've got Darius Slayton, you've got Sterling Shepard, you've got Evan Ingram, you've got Kyle Rudolph, all big body guys that could take away touchdowns from Kenny Golladay, also Kadarius Toney. Most importantly, though, you've got Saquon Barkley returning for the New York Giants. Barkley is a red zone beast. He's a guy that the team wants this offense to run through to take away pressure from Daniel Jones. And he's also a very versatile running back that's a great pass catcher. All these things combined just don't give us confidence that Kenny Golladay is going to produce the type of success he had in Detroit these last couple of years. He's someone that we would be fading. We definitely don't view him as a high-end wide receiver 2. We wouldn't be drafting him in the 4th, 5th round. There's a lot better options. You look at some of these names, below him, just to mention a few. We would much rather get probably, a Jamar Chase, take a chance on the rookie, someone like a T. Higgins as well. So just bringing that up. But at the end of the day, just too much change for Kenny Golladay and a lot of factors not really working in his favor. So as talented as he is, you need to realize that the situation going from Detroit to New York now with the quarterback change, with the wide receiver changes, with the offensive mentality change, that is going to be, a lot to probably process with Kenny Golladay, a lot of change in terms of how he was used before. So bust-wise, the possibility is definitely there. But with that being said, we wrap up this list of our top 5 most likely wide receivers to bust for the 2021 fantasy football season. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, but most importantly, let us know what you thought in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree? What other wide receivers fit in this category, along with any other questions you guys might have. And again, lastly, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. While you're there, get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. All the details in the description. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.